We can't say the future without AI. I mean, there's no way around it. 50% of workers now believe AI is going to improve their experience. When I come into the meeting room, I need a way to incorporate my AI with what's going on in the meeting. It's almost a bring your own AI type of a concept. Most of what we do in our day-to-day is going to change significantly.
Hear the latest AV trends and predictions in this episode of Crestron's Smarter Spaces podcast on your preferred podcast platform.
We'll see some people becoming more sort of superpowered in their jobs because they've used the last 5 years to learn how to write great prompts and learn how to use the tools and how to work in collaboration with an agent. All of those things are increasing your skills in that area.
That's what a great way to say that.
Try it again. I think I'm starting to mutate.
Cross-industry cooperation, future-casting the AV industry from 2030 and beyond. An AI and the future of work. All that and more. Next on AV Week. This is AV Week, episode 723, recorded Friday, June 27th, 2025. Superpowered AV. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of the biggest audiovisual news and information we have gathered for the week. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. We have acquisitions in ICE LED and the death of a technology icon. AVI SPL has been acquired, sort of, I'll get to that in a second, by 26 North Partners. And one of the biggest moves in AV mergers and acquisitions of the year, private equity firm 26 North Partners has announced an agreement to acquire a controlling interest in AVI SPL from Marlin Equity Partners and other shareholders. Now, notice that for a second. Marlin Equity Partners is still a minority owner, but 26 North is the main one here. The integration giant now enters a new chapter under fresh ownership. While financial details were not disclosed, the move signals continued consolidation at the top of the AV integrator market. In an exclusive interview with AV Network, AVI SPL CEO John Zettel emphasized the firm's stability and future-facing focus, stating this acquisition enables them to, quote unquote, accelerate growth while remaining committed to customer service and innovation. Now, side note here, your fantastic host here, Tim Albright, I was on with Gary Kay and Steph Beckett on Rave TV on Wednesday when this news broke. Gary made a very good point. That means that AVI SPL now has a bit more capital to go acquire some more companies. So stay tuned to that space. InfoComm 2025 sets an end-user attendance record. AVEXA released the final numbers for InfoComm 2025, and end users showed up in force. 30,998 qualified attendees from 97 countries and 817 exhibitors. Of those attendees, 35% were registered as end users. Now, this comes from education, corporate, government, house of worship sectors. The shift actually continues to validate the push toward more user-centric solutions and education at major trade shows. The world's first in-ice LED display has been installed in a hockey arena. Europe now hosts the world's first permanent in-ice LED display, installed at the Hockey Club Davos Arena in the Czech Republic. The LED actually sits beneath the ice, and it can display animations, branding, and actually even real-time game content without disrupting gameplay. That's according to the article. As somebody who has watched hockey for the better part of 40 years, I am going to be interested in seeing whether or not it does disrupt gameplay. It is a technological achievement, blending broadcast, live events, and immersive experience. It will be something to watch as venues seek new ways to engage fans and, let's be frank, increase revenue. Farewell to the blue screen of death. Microsoft has quietly retired one of the most infamous symbols in tech, the blue screen of death. Starting with the latest Windows update, critical system errors will now display a cleaner, more modern black screen. While it may seem like a UI tweak, it also marks the end of an era for AV and IT pros who have battled this dreaded signal mid-meeting or mid-show. It does not mean that your system will never need the blue screen of death. It just means now the blue screen of death will be a black screen of death, but that's a whole other issue. RIP to a truly iconic troubleshooting moment. That wraps up your top stories for the week. We will be right back with our roundtable discussion where we will look at the future of AV, the impact of MDEP on AV, and how UC success helps the AV user. This is AV.
Hey listeners, it's your AV sneakerhead, Jennifer Weaver. Listen to AV Career Masterminds, where I chat all things job-related in the audio-visual industry. You can find AV Career Masterminds where you subscribe to podcasts.
All right, we are back with our fantastic roundtable with us to discuss the rest of the news and information. First and foremost, Bren Walker from Kierkegaard. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well, Tim. It's so great to see you. It's great to see Mark. And good to have a chat on a Friday afternoon, leading into a long weekend, Canada Day on Tuesday.
Oh, very good. Happy Canada Day.
Celebrate. Thank you.
For you big dumb Americans that don't know what that is, that's roughly Independence Day for them, but I'm probably bastardizing it, but that's roughly it.
Close enough.
The Mark she's talking about is a young man I got to see for like 30 seconds at InfoComm. Mark Coxon from XTG from AVI-SPL. How are you, sir?
I am doing great. And you're right. We barely got to see each other in passing. You were going one place, I was going another, as InfoComm has probably become more of a logistics nightmare for us than a fun experience sometimes. But I got to everywhere I needed. And then with Bren, nice to see you, Bren. But I feel like I only see Bren when we're on panels. I saw Bren on this show. It's where we met. And then we're on a panel 2024 InfoComm on AI together by Bill Fons, who's on your team, Tim. He put that together. And then now again here. So, Bryn, we're going to have to get together somewhere outside of a panel discussion. That's the goal.
I agree. Yep, I'm totally with you on that. I'll need a journey to Southern California at some point, just because.
She is everywhere, Coxon. So the chances are she's in Southern California at some point is very likely.
Great.
So. Yeah,
for sure.
Speaking of InfoComm, InfoComm 2025 had a forward-looking panel that included Avixa CEO Dave Labuscus, Sure's Christine Scheibach, Crestron's Brad Hinsey, Diversified's Eric Hutto, and Telesys's, say that 5 times fast, Jason Anatori. What they were looking at was really the key trends, the key things that is shaping ProAV through 2030. Couple things here. Number one, I have said this already for 5 years. I have learned not to ask that question beyond maybe 12 to 18 months. I don't look past 5 years personally. COVID taught me that. However, good on them for looking 5 years. They looked at AI, immersive experiences, hybrid collaboration, cloud-based systems. Quite frankly, a lot of this came down to they're looking for, this panel says that the industry is looking for user-centric solutions, cross-industry cooperation, which I am going to give my opinion on that one at the end of this, but also looked at what they called real-world feedback loops, which for the manufacturing side means really touching and connecting with the end users, the IT managers, and getting feedback back from them. On the integration side, I wasn't entirely 100% clear on what the integrators thought about the real-world feedback loops, and we'll get to that in a second. Bren, I am going to start with you. When you look at this and you say, okay, 2030, which is only 5 years away, what else are we going to look at? What else are we going to see when it comes to 5 years from now in the industry?
Well, we'll start to see the displacement of people due to AI agents taking their jobs. And we'll see some people becoming more sort of superpowered in their jobs because they've used the last 5 years to learn how to write great prompts and learn how to use the tools and how to work in collaboration with an agent, right? So the tool use and collaborative use, all of those things are increasing your skills in that area. Now is the time to do that, to avoid being the person without the job 5 years from now. I've always found it interesting that there are some large manufacturers who've been around for a long time who have no idea who their end users are because of how their product gets sold, right? And because they've perhaps in the past not prioritized creating a community around their brand so that people would feel compelled to be engaged with them. So I think that that's now going to be the name of the game for a lot of manufacturers, because you cannot create that real-time feedback loop if you don't know who has the product, right? Or if you expect it to go through a layer, through a distributor.
Yeah.
That's I think part of it. Immersion, it's hard for me to get into the discussion about immersive experiences because I think 90% of what's being called that is not that. And it's very hard to actually pull off something that is truly immersive, meaning that the person loses track of where they are and they have a transformative experience, right? It's interesting to me, and I'll make this my last comment, that we are looking at, sort of revenue of UC, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, and how that's growing. And there was someone who made the comment about experiences and needing to draw people, using AV to draw people to experiences, and then cited a Taylor Swift concert as an example, right? That look at what happens. All these people go to a Taylor Swift concert. People aren't running in the same way to go back to the office. And that's an indictment of architecture and AV and everybody who contributes to what the office environment is. And I think as an industry, we can talk about all the money around UC, and we will always talk about that, but ProAV should never lose sight of the fact that the thing that draws people to us is the Taylor Swift concert. It's not the collaborative tools that they use at work.
So let me follow up really quickly before I get Mark in here. You talked about the manufacturers, and you're right. There are certain manufacturers who simply do not know who their customers are. They know who their first layer customer is, and that is the integrators, right? They don't know who actually is using their product. How do they find that out?
They've got to go out and ask. Honestly, they've got to go out and ask, and they have to say, like I look at the community efforts that I see with some manufacturers, and they're tired. I mean, they're really lame, and when you think about some of the people using those products, if you can't enlist those people to be true brand ambassadors and really to bring people to discussion about why they use the product and why they prefer the product and how they can extend it. If you're not able to task people who are using your product to be an ambassador for you in that way, it's going to be a struggle where you're going to just spend money. And maybe you're doing certain incentives to get people to come on board. Now, there's the other thing of, devices on a network, they're ID'd, we know what they are, right? So somewhere in there is a data chain that could get back to the manufacturer to tell them who has it.
Mr. Coxon, when it comes to your perspective, and you've been in the industry for a minute or two, what do you see for the next 5 years?
Bren brought up so many great points. So maybe I'll start at the end and work backwards. Since immersive is my everyday, Bren, you wrapped up with immersive and you talked about the Taylor Swift Eras Tour. Very interesting because the Taylor Swift Eras Tour is not about going and listening to music. And what we're trying to do in the office is we're trying to make the office a place where we go and do work. And that's an outdated method of thinking of how we design space for people. People go to the Eras Tour because there's a moment of surprise and delight. Taylor brings different artists to different events. You don't know who it's going to be. You don't know who the special guest is going to be. You don't know what covers she might pull out from somewhere else. She pulls out covers from different generations. So she's not just talking to this layer of Swifties, she's talking to their parents by bringing out music from different generations and covering that live in a way that isn't in a recorded fashion. So you're creating an only here experience, moments of surprise and delight. You've created a social community, the Swiftie community, around the things that are happening when you go to this place. And you're creating this bespoke thing that even though she's going city by city by city on the tour, every single one of those shows is different in one way or another, depending on the community, the region, all of those things. And when we think about companies, they're trying to benchmark this idea of what it takes to get, work done, the utility of work. But if you're not adapting that for generation of the workforce by the difference of your workforce makeup by office, of the way that the different regions have different cultures, if you're not adding in moments of surprise and delight, moments of connection, moments of social, moments of community, if you're not addressing the whole human, you will never create a compelling experience. So as far as a workplace experience goes, you have to be thinking about the whole human and the 5 different modes are always in. They're in discovery, they're in entertainment, they're in aspiration, they're in the moment of task, which is work, which is only one of those, right? Yeah. And they're in the social mode. They're in all of those modes simultaneously, and we design for one. And that's the problem. When we design for one, we lose, because the convenience of the at-home experience, no matter how much you could create some little level of a difference of utility. The hardware and the equipment may be slightly better at the office, but the convenience factor and the ability to engage in those other 4 modes at your personal desk or at your home or at the coffee shop or whatever other place you work are much superior to what we're doing when we're thinking about the office as this task-based experience. And so my thing is we have to really open up as technology people and think of how we're supporting all of those modes of things. And it's not a nice to have anymore. Right? Like we need to support the person in all the modes they're at, or they will not enjoy being in the space. And we're no longer in a mode where, if you want to work here, then you have to sit here. There have been a couple companies that have tried that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work anymore. Too many options, right? So number one, that. Immersive experiences, totally agree. A big screen is not an immersive experience. We want a transportive effect. And if you are looking for big immersive experiences, they will always do well when pulled off in that respect, right? Like I was talking on one of the podcasts, you can put a big screen in and it looks like a jungle. So if I walk into that, do I feel like I'm in a jungle if my feet are clacking on a tile floor? No. Okay, so now I walk in and it's soft. The floor's soft and it starts to crunch under my feet. Now does it feel like a jungle? Somewhat. But the ceiling is light. Okay, now we bring in a layer of 3D objects. We have actually physical set pieces in front of the screen that are giving us a 3D dimension. We have the smell of dirt as we're walking into a space. We have an ambient soundscape that's randomized, that's not pattern recognition on a loop. Every 5 seconds a bird chatters in the corner. That's not immersive, right? Because it pulls us out and it makes us recognize that we're in a loop. We're in a loop there. So then all of a sudden, does it feel like we're in a jungle? Yes, right? And so like when you said we forget where we're at, we need to take those lessons when we're building immersive experiences. And I think those experiences will become sought out more and more and more as we have these 2-dimensional interfaces with people 8 hours a day on an hour-by-hour schedule through our UCC platforms. We will want to go do the things that make us forget about where we're at and give us a new perspective on something, right? So I think those are only going to grow. And then going back to the AI tools, because I think that was the last one. So moving backwards through that loop, yes, I think people think I'm being trite or trying to play with words when I say this, but there's a difference between the future of work, which implies some digitization, whatever, I can't say it, of the past, right? Digitization of the past. If I say it fast, it goes well. Of the past, as opposed to what is really the work of the future. And the work of the future is going to be different. A coder in the future will no longer, his superpower or her superpower will no longer be knowing where the semicolon and the parentheses go in a line of code. They will be prompt engineers, and they will say, I need to have this system in this room that is composed of these devices. I need this screen to turn on, these lights to dim down, these 4 things to happen. There are these manufacturers, and I'm using this language protocol to program that. And it will write the code. And if you say, now, can you translate that to simple for me? It'll write the simple code. And your job will then be to analyze it, debug it, make sure that the logic of the transitions and the way that the code is actually progressing through the way that the system works is good. So that type of work is going to be different. You no longer need a desk where you sit upright in a very well-supported chair, keystroking so that you don't get carpal tunnel. Now maybe you're sitting back in something where you're analyzing things in a larger scale. I can lean back. I can relax. I get into critical and analytical thinking mode. I'm taking things in, and now I'm making decisions, and then I'm going back and rewriting prompts. That type of office environment is going to be different than an office environment where people keystroke codes all day. And that's just one piece of work, one thing. And I think the other thing that silos would do, when you said people will gain superpowers, I love that. That's what a great way to say that. Some people who are embracing the tools will. And I think we're going to have less of a siloed workflow in our offices, where a piece of work passes from a if you think of AV, it goes from a salesperson, and then it goes to a sales engineer, and then it goes to a design engineer, and then it goes to a project engineer, and then it goes to a commissioning specialist, and then it goes through silos of work, with maybe some of the magic being lost in translation as it moves through silos. If I no longer need to be a deep subject matter expert on any of those things, I may be able to manage the work through all 7 of those stages of work with tools that are aiding me. And then the spirit of the job is never lost, because I was there at the beginning and I was there at the end, and I'm using tools. And maybe there's some people that are supporting those teams with tools too, but I can be more involved in the project from beginning to end. I'm not tied up with production work. And now I actually get to be innovative and creative, because I'm not spending all my time doing manual entry of keystrokes. I'm spending 10% of my time writing prompts, and the other 90% of my time now opens up to actually do something besides copy and paste, because the project's due in 2 weeks. So I think we're going to see better design. I think we're going to see more innovation. And I'm hopeful that we don't leave too many people behind that are on the back end of adopting these tools.
Okay, so 2 things that Mark said that I got to talk about. The first one is, so that person who is now using AI to write their code, and then they're evaluating and doing some analytical thinking, when they get stuck, what are they going to do? They're going to go to the office forest, because that puts them in diffuse mode and they stop thinking about that problem. They're going to walk around in that forest. They're going to have their aha moment. Then they're going to go back to their desk.
Yep.
That's why you put the experience in the office, because that experience helps people be more creative, right? As we move away from this sort of task-oriented basis of our work. And the thing about that, the mode, right? About we've been designing for the task mode only. That is the part that's going away because of AI, right? That's what scripts can handle better than us, are these predetermined tasks. So we're now all need to stretch into the other parts of how we work with people and how we understand problems and how we understand what our clients want in a system design, what they want in a user experience. AV now must design for user experience as a regular part of what we do.
Yeah.
And UI, really design UI, as opposed to just saying, yep, I got 6 buttons on the touchpad, I'm done. Yeah. That's the base part of it.
If you think about the workflow, when we get brought into a project, we have this deadline, we have this date, and we start working backwards. When we build our schedules, we look at what the occupancy date is. And then we work backwards and we say, okay, well, how long is commissioning time? How long is this? How long is that? And that'll truncate our discovery time and our design time in the front, because we have this productive work that we have to get done in order to fulfill construction documents, get permits, do all those things. If we can offload that production work to something that can do all of that work, instead of in 8 weeks, that week can be done in 2 weeks by scripts and prompts and AI tools that are producing that work. That frees up 6 weeks of time that we can actually get artistic with UIs. We can actually do end user interviews, persona interviews about, what do you call an input on a TV? Do you call it a source? Do you call it an input? Do you call it a switch? What do you call that when you change from one piece of content to another on your screen? Because those are the things that personalize the experience, where you get higher adoption, people have more intuitive interfaces. And this is the work that we've seen tech giants do. I mean, Apple can spend millions and millions of dollars testing, whether the phone call button should be green or red. They do that. I mean, believe me, there's a reason that the text button is green, and it is green on purpose, and it could not be any other color based on what they've done, or they would have tested that, right? And in AV, we've never been able to do that, right? We grab an old template that we had, it's close enough, we rebrand it with the company logo, maybe we change the background to blue instead of red, but we don't have the time or the availability of the people, because those people are busy too doing productive work. Now those end user contacts have more time to go through interviews and help us figure out what their workflows are and how things are, because they're not stuck doing mundane keystroke entry or whatever it happens to be. So yes, there's this huge opportunity opening up that allows us to do the things that make us more human in the first place, the things that we get more joy and passion out of, we're going to be able to dig into those things. So I think, if you talk about 5 years, unfortunately, I don't think all this is going to happen in 5 years, because I think we have too many people that are invested in the model of the past. We've seen this for years. Things come out. AV over IP has been a discussion for 20 years, and all of a sudden it's really the only way we're doing it. And we knew it was going to go that way, but it took a long time to drag everybody along, right? So I loved your comment kind of pre-show, Bryn, that probably this is more of a 2040 thing. By the time everybody gets on board and things move, the technologies will be there to do it in 5 years, but it'll be a select few that are there, and it'll be our job over the next 10 years to get those really good case studies of what the most innovative companies are doing and to bring that into mainstream over the next decade.
So let me jump in here on that, Mark, because you're right. There's two things here, and one of those was the discussion around cross-industry cooperation, and there's a thread here. Let me pull it for a second. That's fine as a theory. In practice, though, and here's what I mean by in practice. If you look at the top 3, maybe even the top 5 AV over IP technologies, and I'm going to pick on that for a second. The top 5 AV over IP technologies, they are not based on an interoperable standard. They are silos. They are one company's version of AV over IP, which is fine if that is what the client wants. And I say that because AVNation, we've done a couple different case or focus groups, and interoperability has come out of those, right, during that discussion. And at the very end, one of the last ones I did, I'm like, okay, so tell me your experience and your opinion of all these different AV over IP technologies. And I'm not kidding you, the ones that had the worst scores were the ones that were, honest to God, interoperable. So either the clients aren't telling me the truth, because they're talking with their money.
Yeah.
Or they feel like they have to go to these top 3 or 4 or 5 because that is the industry lead. I'm not going to say it's the standard because I have strong feelings about the word standard. But, so what's going, and here's the thing with that is, yes, the technology is there. Interoperability could happen, right? And I'm watching our the fine folks over IPMX, and I beat those suckers up every freaking trade show I get, right?
Yep.
Because God love them, but they remind me too much of ABB, and I've told them that. This is not Tim talking out of turn. But they've got to get over a couple of humps. But the technology will be there by 2030. You're right. Yeah. My question is, are the customers going to be there? Is the person, is the IT manager that makes that decision, are they going to be there by 2030, or will it take till 2040?
So I'll jump in on this only first, if you don't mind, Bryn, only because I had a conversation with Chris Netto about this at a bar in St. Paul, based on an AV and the AM discussion that was online this week. And this very topic came up about AV over IP and interoperability between standards. I can't talk today. Multisyllabic words are not my strength today. Although I said multisyllabic.
That was impressive. Very well. You said multisyllabic words.
And that was the hardest one. Multisyllabic is the hardest one.
There you go. So we were talking about this, and I will say let me just say two things. I think whether it's AVB or whether it's IPMX or whatever.
No, AVB is out the window. Don't even.
It's done. We talked about that. It seemed like that with Harman's acquisition, Samsung. It seemed like for a moment there was going to be something there, and they didn't ever capitalize on it. However, it's going to be something. I don't know if it's going to be IPMX. Could be. They may remind you too much of somebody who didn't get it done, and I know some fine folks that are working on some stuff there, and I think it has a lot of promise. I will say that interoperability has to be a foregone conclusion to bridge these systems at some point, right? Just like AV over IP eventually became the thing. Crestron at one point had one NVX card reluctantly in their DM switchers that you could get. And now everything's NVX, right? So these companies go. I'll say that. So there are two things. One is walled gardens, and the walled gardens have to fall. Like customers are afraid because they put in things like, if you don't use our system end to end, then we were not going to warranty it and troubleshoot it. So we have these contractual things we have with some of our manufacturers who kind of wield a little bit of a hammer to say, like, we need this solution to be our inputs, our outputs, and our infrastructure. And if it isn't, then it could be interoperable. But if it's not, then if anything else is in the system, we're not going to be able to support the system. So managers are risk averse, especially IT managers, and they're going to trust that. And they're going to stay in these walled environments as long as there's no guarantee that breaking that down is going to help them. I will also say that some of the interoperable systems are doing their own thing. So like, you may see somebody who's in SDVOE Alliance and they put just a little bit of a twist on the flavor of what they're doing so that it self-identifies better on a network, or so that their software reaches it differently. And so they're on a standard with an alteration. And then it may not be cross-compatible with somebody else's standard with their alteration, right? So the more that they try to position it as we've created something that's interoperable, but they've purposefully added something to it that makes it harder to buy somebody else's product as an endpoint to decode it, right? So what we have to start to get to is I think that as some of these companies start to have deeper relationships, think of somebody like Magewell. Magewell makes an SDOVOE, they make a 1 gig, they make an NDI, now if you're a manufacturer like that, doesn't matter. You could buy our endpoint for anything. And if you have an IPMX gateway, I can cross-convert that across whatever. I can do 1080p to digital signage. I can do 4K to my large LCD video walls. I can do NDI straight into my UCC meetings and my live event streams. And I'm super happy as a technology owner that needs portability of signals across all of my platforms to any end device that needs to play that without managing multiple ecosystems and having those cross compatibility platforms. So I guess the short answer is I think that cross collaboration has to happen. I think people want it. I think they've been bullied into staying into walled gardens in a way, and maybe they're just rewarding the success they've had with manufacturers. But at some point, it breaks down. And we need a way to be able to own our signals end to end, no matter what device they come out of and what device we want to play them back on.
There isn't much I can add to that, right? Except the inevitability of it. Walled gardens generally just don't work. They will fall at some point, especially when you are talking about software being involved. And at some point, also, the security risk becomes a big enough factor where a player will emerge, right? Okay. I just think that AV is used to moving slow, has been accustomed to moving slow, and that's just not going to be the way things are. That you won't be able to afford moving slow. One of the pieces that we had, that getting back to the UC and how many billions UC
we're not getting to that, but go ahead.
we're not gonna get to that. However,
we hijacked the show.
Yeah, I think that number was like 760 billion or something like that.
Something like that,
right?
Mitchell will put the link on the show.
744.
I come back to the fact that Amazon's value is how many trillions? It just has to be. It just has to be an opportunity that someone thinks is worth going after, and all of a sudden you can't move as slow as you were before, or you can't have your walled garden anymore because someone else sees the opportunity in doing what you are not doing, and that's that's here for AV. It's here. It's here with as soon as you're on the network. You immediately are in a different world from the one you were in before, where you were just protecting your little signal type. So
it's the story of innovation in general, right? Like Kodak knowing that, introducing and, inventing the digital camera, but thinking film was like its future. Like we see it over and over and over again, right? We fall in love with our old ideas and we romanticize them in a way. Like if you ever watch the BlackBerry movie, the guy's like, but it doesn't have a keyboard, like everybody loves the keyboard. It's like, well, they love the keyboard if they're just doing email, but the second you make that an MP3 player and a video screen and everything else, like they don't care that it doesn't have the keyboard anymore because it does 18 other things that they want to do, right? So again, it's very similar in this way, is that I think, we want to be able to own our content, own our signals, end to end, and put them wherever we want to. And we need to be able to do that in the easiest way possible that we can manage, and managing 18 different systems just doesn't work. So
I will say one positive thing about the interoperability part. And that is for those of us who have been around control, and I was a failed control programmer for like 10 years ago. There was something that came out called CEC. CEC was the promise of CEC 10 years ago, was that you could pick up your remote and you could control everything, because they all agreed, all the manufacturers agreed on the same signals that actually went through your HDMI connector. At the time, the only thing that everybody agreed on was the stop command. Fast forward 10 years from ago, or 10 years to today, you can pick up your Apple TV remote, you can press anything, and it will turn on your TV magically, because of CEC. Now, it took 10 years to get there, and it took 10 years of backbiting and complaining and fighting and this and that and the other, but it did get there, right? So I will give both Brennan and Mark some credit here, where the interoperability probably will happen. Not probably, it will happen. It's going to take a little bit of pain before it gets there, though. So.
Yeah, I love the CEC thing, because I think we all remember having to like look in that little book to see what code you had to plug in for a Sony TV versus there's like 8 of them, and none of them actually controlled your television.
It was stop. That was it.
Yeah, exactly. And now the same thing. Like you said, my Fire TV remote, I plug in the Fire Stick, and all of a sudden when I push volume, my TV volume goes up. When I push power, my TV and my Fire Stick both go off. It knows that. And I'm not programming macros. I'm not reprogramming remotes. Right? Like,
but no, none of them worked. It was horrible. It was frustrating as all get out. And it was 10 years ago.
Yes,
I'm still frustrated, I guess. So, all right, y'all. I wasn't kidding. We're not getting to the rest of them. Bren Walker, thank you so much. Appreciate your time as always. How do people connect with you or Kierkegaard?
Bren at Kierkegaard.com, and LinkedIn, Brenda J. Walker, which I show up once a month or so.
She does, and she does really good things on it. So, Mr. Coxon, good to see you as always, sir. How do people connect with you? How do they connect with XTG from AVI SPL, or how do they read your fantastic musings on Rave Pubs?
So ravepubs.com. If you go there and click on Blog Squad, you'll see my name. There's over 500 pieces, I think, there over the last 12 years. I've been doing that for quite a while now. You can read on everything from the way that Darwin's finches equate to innovation in your business to what I think about projection mapping, right? So there's all sorts of cool stuff there. You can get in touch with me on LinkedIn. Is probably the best place today. If you find me on LinkedIn, just Mark Coxon on LinkedIn. It should be kind of the first click there. And then if you want to get me, you can check out our XTG website, avispl.com/X as in experience, T as in technology, and G as in group, X/XTG. And you'll find a bunch of the work that I've been involved with over the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, awesome. My name is Tim Albright. Do not follow me anywhere. If you would like to read things that I write that have nothing to do with technology, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. But go by the website if you would, please. AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You will find this podcast and a host of others, including a brand spanking new Women in AV, where they look at both being a mentor and a mentee. It's a fantastic episode. We've talked about InfoComm, actually almost a lot here. You can also still check out our coverage of InfoComm, avnation.tv/IC25. If you're watching the YouTube and you're tired of looking at my face, you can just go listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to see what Bren and Mark look like, you can go to YouTube, so go the opposite direction. But all that and more at avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That is all the time we have for AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation. Hello, this is Steve Greenblatt, host of AVNation's A State of Control podcast. Each month, Rich Fregosa and I explore trending topics related to control programming and automation in the audiovisual industry. We speak with a variety of AV professionals who share their perspectives, knowledge, and experiences. Please join us for this monthly conversation. Check out A State of Control on avnation.tv or wherever you get your podcasts.